What you can expect for tonight, we'll go through the agenda. Hopefully you'll hear some excellent cross-sections from the industry. We're very passionate about this not just being a hardware group or not just being a software group. We want to curate a variety of perspectives. I myself, I'm a wannabe engineer that's a marketing lady by day. So I'm a tinkerer, I like to write, I like to take things apart. Definitely not trained as an electrical engineer. So I'll represent my perspectives, but I kind of hope that everyone within the group will be open to speaking with people of various disciplines, because I think something that's unique about this space, wearable products are not just hardware, they're not just software, and for any company to succeed well necessitates that those folks and those entrepreneurs and teams have to be able to navigate both sides of the space. So I think it's really critical that we get to know each other and play very nicely well with each other and build a good community in Austin too. So with that, I'll turn things over to Luis.
Hey guys. Whoa. That was an aggressive hey. I'm sorry, I guess the mics are really sensitive. So I'm Luis Rincon. I'm with Wearables.com, co-founder and head. My two other co-founders actually are standing in the back. Dan and JR, they're the two handsome gentlemen waving at you. So a little bit about us, we're currently providing curated content and insights into the market, more so just reporting on what's going on in the space, but our end goal is to build the wearables ecosystem around the wearable tech community. So obviously we're really excited for this meetup. You know, Jen and I have been meeting for coffees and breakfast and just talking about our interest in providing, I guess, a better venue for people who are interested within Austin, in all aspects of wearable technology to meet up, which actually, raise your hand if you are a wearable entrepreneur of some sort. Okay, awesome. And what about hardware engineers, software, marketing, business? Okay, awesome. So, yeah, there's not a whole lot else that I want to say. I'm going to be giving a little bit of a talk later, so I just want to leave it at that. In terms of what we'll be doing tonight, so we have a really awesome first-time focus or guest speaker in Atlas Wearables, who I'm sure a lot of the people in this room are familiar with. So they'll be going first, and I'll introduce them in a second. After that, we'll be going into what we're calling quick 5x5s. So there's a handful of us who have volunteered to just give a little bit of a conversation around what we're doing in the wearable space and what we hope to get out of this group. And then after that, we will just be providing, I believe, yeah, just a closing statement and time to drink more beer and get to know each other. I don't think we have a hard stop, do we? Like 8?
Sure, we'll wrap around 8:15 to 8:30. Yeah. For real, we have to be out of the space a little bit after that. And demo-wise, too, we have 2 demos in the back. So when you're networking, please make sure to stop by the Atlas table. Also, we have an excellent demo in development for how to measure your high five with wearable tags. Raise your hand. All right, so those are the folks to connect with afterwards and help influence more developed and early stage prototypes and projects that your peers are working on too.
Feel free to high-five him all night. His hand's gonna hurt by the end of this. Okay, so with that, we will transition over to Peter Lee. He is co-founder and head of Atlas Wearables, and I would rather they introduce themselves, so I'm just gonna let him take over.
I'll talk super softly. It is really loud. It's significantly louder over here than it is in the back, which is interesting. All right, so I have some notes here just to help me along through these slides, but today I'll give a pretty quick overview on the life of Atlas, why Atlas was created, backgrounds into the company's information, where the founders are from, how the team was assembled, and something important is really what makes Atlas different. And from a wearables market perspective, I'm sure all of you are familiar, it's certainly getting more and more crowded every day, and being able to differentiate yourself is something that's very important. Overview of, I guess, more through our history, post Techstars, post Indiegogo campaign, as well as jumping into a lot of lessons hard learned or things that I would have loved to know before getting deeper into this. And of course, then we can open up to just sort of a general Q&A session, and I can hopefully answer as many questions as possible. So first, we can begin by sort of asking a hypothetical question. Like this is, I'm sure, a scene that's familiar to most of you. It's really like there's a lot of valuable information, though we take this for granted at this point in our life. The amount of information you get from your dashboard is pretty much everything you need to drive a car. And so first you have the RPM, and you also have your speedometer. And these are sort of the feedback mechanisms that when you drive your car, you've really grown used to. But it's really tools and measurement devices that you would have a hard time driving a car safely without. And this is really where the core of our technology and our mission really comes into play, where it's making the data and the analytics that can help you be better and help you improve yourself easily accessible. But the trick is not really getting the data or the analytics, it's really in making it an effortless experience where you don't have to do anything to get this type of data from your car. You just drive, do what you normally do. And likewise, we believe that same type of mission or same type of goal should be accomplished in wearables, where all you have to do is put it on and it does everything for you automatically. It shouldn't require additional time, additional value. It should not require additional time for you to get the extra value that you're looking for. And this sort of hypothetical is really a quote from Stefan from OM Signal. You would never drive a car without a speedometer, RPM, or a fuel gauge, right? And that's something that we thoroughly agree with and believe that type of mindset should be applied to, I mean, not just really wearables in general, but in terms of future technologies and solutions that are developed. So a little bit more about our background. You can try to figure out which one I am. The other one on the left, spoiler alert, is Michael. He's in the back. He's co-founder of Atlas. We've known each other since preschool. And that certainly helps a lot from a founder's perspective, being able to understand and know someone intimately for a very long time, because startup life is inherently rocky boat. So the Atlas company has been around for about 19 months now. We were founded pretty much January 1st of 2013, as our legal documents say. And since then, we've been a part of the Techstars Accelerator program, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We actually worked out here for 3 months in Capital Factory and had an incredible time here. And post that, we also ran an Indiegogo pre-sale campaign, during which we pre-sold about $629,000 worth of Atlases. And throughout the whole experience, I think it's important to note, I guess, a lot of the milestones. And Techstars was certainly a big one. You can see us. We're right there on stage, and the prototype didn't look as the prototypes look today. So it's also been an incredible journey from the engineering side, watching the development from the mechanical engineering, the electrical engineering, the firmware, as well as all the way up on the software stack. Watching the development there grow has also been incredibly exciting. But a little bit about a shameless plug for the Techstars program, something we certainly highly recommend it. For myself, as a first-time venture-backed startup, it's something that's been an incredible experience in terms of, from the network perspective, from the training perspective, the exposure to the right leaders in the space, and really how to communicate and engage with these sources in order for ourselves to learn better. It's something that I think Techstars did a really good job of teaching us. So now we're going to sharply jump back to the speedometer reference. So this is an example of a dashboard that works great with some of the products that you see. The Nike Fieldman has been very popular, and especially with what they've done previously, from marrying hardware and software, I think also to what Jen was speaking about earlier within the wearable space. It's certainly something that, especially with the advent of Kickstarter and crowdfunding and pre-sales, startups can be more nimble in how they develop their solutions. Now, it's easier now than it has been before to create a hardware product pre-funding. You can pretty much prove traction and show consumer engagement at a very early stage in the startup's life cycle, which I think makes it beneficial for all of us in terms of being able to bring new ideas and products to the market. Here's another dashboard with Fitbit as well. So here's a couple of snapshots of our preliminary SketchUps for the UX UI on the iPhone app. And I think this is a good place to talk a little bit about how the data itself isn't really enough, and that's something I think is important. You see, I mean, because of the lower barrier to create wearable devices, there's a certain level of sort of just people jumping in with solutions that may or may not be actually valuable in the long term. And something that is plaguing the wearable device market is really low user retention. And that's something that I think is very important to consider when testing out wearables or pursuing your own wearable dreams, is making sure that the solutions and the results that you are going for is something that is sustainable over a period of time, where you see about 33% drop off, a third stop using your device after about 6 months, and then after the next 6 months, another third drops off, and you really only have a third of your initial customer base using your product. And I think that's something that's really important, something that's a part of our design philosophy in terms of creating solutions that have a staying power that is really beyond something that you can get from just a Bluetooth-enabled pedometer. So from a history perspective, of the 18 months, I think we spent maybe 14 months working out of our own living room. So here's a little shot of our old office space. We have now grown out of it. We're now actually in a really nice office north of town, which has been incredibly rewarding. From our background perspective, the team now has expanded to 10 full-time equivalents. My background's in biomedical engineering. And Michael, before Atlas, worked at Philips within the healthcare division doing electrical design for defibrillators. So the team now is incredibly engineering focused. We have firmware engineer, Austin, right there waving. We also have Tony, our marketing PR lead here, snapping photos of everybody. We also have full stack developer, 2 data scientists, iOS dev, a mechanical engineer, and a couple more people. So this is a picture of our homey new office. We still don't have a sign yet, but if you look very closely underneath the no soliciting, it says Atlas. So here's our most recent photograph of our prototype. So this is a cast urethane mold. I'm wearing one right now. We also have a couple more in the back that we can show off, and we also have a demo afterwards, so you guys can. Everyone's very interested in seeing the demo. So you're going to train Atlas to recognize bicep curls and alternating bicep curls, and have the algorithm itself be able to identify how you're doing it, so that when you do it in the future, it's something that it's automatically tracked. And I think that covers most of the interesting talking points that we wanted to go over. And I guess I'd love to open it up for just general Q&A session in terms of any specifics that you guys would like to talk about.
You had mentioned the low user retention rate is plaguing the wearable space. I was kind of interested in more of your thoughts around that, and how Atlas is kind of directly thinking about that in their own way.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the question was on the low user retention and how we're targeting it or addressing the issue. Yeah. So the technology itself is very interesting. So we started this, so I guess a little bit about the backstory of how we came to this and why we think there's value in what we're doing. As an engineer, you sort of see a lot of people solving cool engineering problems and then sort of slapping together an application in commercial use, and then you sort of don't really understand why there's a fit or not. And the idea for Atlas really came from, I guess, 2 parallel experiences. One being fitness motivation, tracking whether or not social responsibility is a motivator, intrinsic is a motivator, extrinsic being winning an iPad or an iPhone as a motivator. And that was one thread of thought. And the second being just machine learning in general, and how that could be applied, how it's been applied in voice recognition, it's been applied in image recognition, sentiment analysis, etc. And something that has been sort of untouched really is interpretation of this data from the inertial sensor perspective, so accelerometers, gyroscopes, and even combining that with different biometric sensors. And so what is different about the Atlas technology versus the pedometer, really basic pedometer technology, is that the technology isn't really forced upon the solution. It's really that there's this problem where people want to track their fitness data, which is, we believe, something that's more prevalent than just tracking how many steps you take each day. Because once you know you take 10,000 steps each day, it doesn't really change that much. The data doesn't really motivate. It motivates you a little bit, but it quickly saturates and peaks off. So I mean, we're really going for this core problem. If you like to exercise and can't see your improvement, and it's really, honestly, it's a pain in the ass to like write things down every single time you do a lift. And the sticking power really comes from the existence of a pre-existing problem where the technology actually makes it incredibly easy for you to do. And from the use case perspective, the app is really where app and the wearable UI UX is where you'll actually see the manifestation of how we're trying to solve this in terms of reducing the number of clicks it takes for you to get to the certain plots or graphs that you're interested in, and also an interesting placement of where you find recommendations in locations where that's the time when your mindset is ready for a recommendation, as opposed to just spamming users.
What are the outputs that you get from Atlas, like after a set or after a workout?
Mm-hmm. So at launch, the API itself will be focused on post-workout level. So set level, rep level will be something that will be rolling out in the future. So for starters, you get the basic workout log. So you get time starting of workout, time end of workout. In between there, you'll get labels of how many seconds you spent doing bicep curls, and how many reps you did it, what your heart rate was at about 1 hertz, and how much weight you did it at. So the weight can be manually entered as well, but we also have a way to estimate how much weight you're doing, and the on-screen display will also enable you to make those corrections on the fly. So that's sort of just the base level. It's as if you wrote down to the second what you did and when you did it. So the cool stuff comes on top of that. So we can begin to tell you active time versus rest time. So from our current data, we find that when people go to the gym, they spend about 21% of their time actually lifting. The other times you're just sort of like sitting around, I don't know, drinking water or complaining about how little rest you get. So that's one thing, active time versus rest time. Form score is also something interesting where we can begin to show you how close your form of your bicep curl is to what a personal trainer with a similar demographic has. So we can give you recommendations if you're using too much weight, if you're using too little weight, if you're moving too slow, moving too quickly. All of these can be different types of analytics that can be pulled from the database after the fact. And dynamic rest, which is something that we're pretty excited about, where instead of resting like 90 seconds or a fixed amount of time after each workout, because we know what exercises you're doing and are going to be doing, and we have access to the heart rate, we can then give you a smart timer where it's really when your heart rate reaches 75% of maximum, then we can vibrate the device to notify you to continue on to the next exercise.
Yeah, can you tell me about the role of the data scientist in Atlas or in the wearables market at large? What's their function? What do they do? What's their background?
Sure. So I would say, I guess there would be two. This is just my personal perspective. I'm sure there are many other perspectives as well. I sort of think there are two major camps. One being an algorithm development role, where you're looking to combine different sensors or different types of inputs to be able to derive some sort of output. And the second being more of a big data analytics perspective. So if, for example, if you're a part of MyFitnessPal and you have access to the last decade of diets and habits that people have, you can begin to pick out which diets work for what type of people, etc. So from the background perspective, in the former camp, real-time data processing is something that's certainly valued, as well as with noisy data. From a wearable perspective, you think inertial sensors being one of the big inputs for these algorithm technologies, and the technology itself is just inherently very, very noisy. So being able to sift through that is certainly something that's very important. And then from the big data perspective, that's sort of the more general camp of data science in terms of being able to find the trends and patterns in an efficient way that can be mix and matched it and then digested for easy user consumption.
So you mentioned about using those algorithms to give recommendations as to do more exercise, or you can take a break right now. I would assume that given that you don't have any doctors in your team, wouldn't it be like a little bit kind of questionable, because if you recommend something and maybe some people have different kind of reactions to different kind of exercises, and they can sue your company that you made this recommendation to me, and have you thought about that?
Yeah, so the question was, have we thought about the legal repercussions of recommending certain workouts or routines? Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, so that's something that's certainly a big concern for us in terms of user safety. Someone bench pressing too much weight, and then the bar drops and they unfortunately hurt themselves. That's certainly something that we're working towards alleviating from a legal perspective in terms of what is actually our fault versus something that should be sort of eliminated from just an average use case. And I don't have a specific hard answer for how we're dealing with that yet, but that is something that we are investigating.
What's your testing look like when you're talking about tweaking the algorithms? Like, how do you go about knowing how the software is going to, or the hardware is going to sense what the person's doing, and then when it's wrong, like, how do you know it's wrong, and
right.
How do you test the repeatability of it? Yeah,
that's a great question. So for our application, the demographic of the user is something that greatly affects the way your arm moves. So something interesting is actually if you were historically a gymnast, or versus if you're historically a swimmer, your form for your squats look different. Just the tiniest things in your own personal biological history can be manifested in the way your form is performed, or the way you perform an exercise. So I mean, our testing is very, well, for lack of a better word, like shotgunning, where you pretty much have to just test all types of edge cases, all types of users, all types of use cases. The big design decision for the incorporation of the display with the touchscreen lends itself to the correct labeling of data, which from a machine learning perspective is something that's vital to a robust data set. And really being able to make these corrections on the fly while at the moment, as opposed to after the fact where you might forget it, ensures that our data is cleanly labeled, which then helps the post-processing in terms of algorithm refinement.
So do you see the experience, like when you first start using the device, you're kind of having to guide it, it's learning you and you're learning it, and then eventually it sort of gets to the point where it knows you and it's more hands-off?
Exactly. So there is likely there will be sort of a get-to-know each other stage, which could be a surprisingly fun way for you to be introduced to the device. And it's very exciting how adaptive the technology is in terms of the more you do certain exercises, actually could shed light on how you do other exercises, which makes it easier and smarter for it to help do all the tedious work for you.
So how do you find out initially then if someone does have like a swimming background or a gymnastics background? Like, how do you get that profile on them without having to burden them with providing too much information? Or like, what happens if someone might have a swimming background, but it turns out that they happen to have general form more like a gymnast? Right.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I mean, we certainly have like hard limits on the number of questions we can ask someone before someone just gets upset and throws the device away. So we just set these hard limits in terms of so we're running a harvesting program at the moment where we're inviting different beta testers to help us build the platform from a wide demographical background. And that's one of the things that we'll be testing throughout the harvesting strategy in terms of what wiggle room do we have to ask questions, and then within that, what questions do we want to ask that statistically shed the most light on what type of form persona this person is.
So are you manufacturing the device in the US, or are you sourcing it from the outside?
So we're manufacturing overseas.
How much are you selling it for?
Sorry?
How much do you sell it for?
How much are we, the MSRP? So the MSRP for the device will be $199.
And this is what you charge to the Indiegogo campaigners also, who put money back to the campaign?
So Indiegogo backers got it for cheaper. So the way we had it was sort of increasing the price up until MSRP. So the earlier you get in, the cheaper it is, as well as a sign of support for the company as well. As we get closer and closer, so right now I believe it's $179 on the current website, but as we get closer and closer, we'll be boosting it up to MSRP, up until when it's available on shelves.
When are you expecting to launch it?
So consumer delivery will begin December of this year. We're also on schedule to launch review units by October of this year.
They've been watching like Pebble and some of the other smartwatches go through production. Has there been challenges with working overseas and
Definitely.
manufacturing?
Yeah. So manufacturing overseas certainly has its own bag of challenges. We're certainly lucky to have a lot of good mentors and people with overseas manufacturing experience, people with distribution experience, people with quality assurance experience. So I mean, it's certainly more effort required to manufacture overseas, but depending on what scale you're at, it might be a smarter decision fiscally for you to move abroad as opposed to keeping things internally here. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you guys raised close to $700,000 with Indiegogo, and you're also obviously selling online as well, continuing to collect revenue. Have you found you'll be able to actually, launch the device and sell it and be profitable? Will you be able to make it to that point without getting external funds in?
So this is just my personal opinion, but I'm pretty sure it's like close to impossible to launch a hardware product without outside funding. So we're privately funded outside of the Indiegogo. For us, the Indiegogo / Kickstarter, the crowdfunding pre-sale strategy is really sort of like a marketing / proof of traction play to really establish that people want this, and then to use that as leverage for you to find the real funding that you need to be able to bring a hardware product to market. That's a good question.
So I assume you have your own OS inside the phone. Are you going to change at a certain point, like for Android Wear or whatever Apple comes with?
Yeah. So we don't have a full We don't have a full OS on the device. We're running something much more low power. But speaking to the device agnosticity, that's not a real word, but being device agnostic is something that's important to us from a software perspective. And from the core launch, software and the hardware is something that needs to be intertwined. And for the next couple of years before sort of the wearable market is commoditized by a lot of the larger players, there's a lot of wiggle room for smaller companies like ourselves to be able to establish a brand and software and the hardware sort of combo that ties itself very well to the use case. So something like having the heart rate available at a very accurate level is something that's very important. But the technology itself is something that can also be applied within the Apple or Samsung or the Android, family.
Some of the other watches, like I think Basis, for example, I know I've heard has had challenges with, from a hardware perspective, like it being a large piece that you wear. How have you thought about, from a design perspective, have you done like any type of user testing or anything on your particular design?
Yep, that's a great question. Yeah, so design is something that's pretty important from the scale in terms of purchasing rationale. And so this design in itself is made to maximize the amount of display space that you can have in a touchscreen for interfacing. So there's certainly a lot of user testing to be done further, but from targeting, from the way we're applying the technology within the fitness niche, we have the flexibility where these consumers are more interested in the value of the technology itself, I mean, they certainly care about having something terribly disgusting on the wrist, but something that is rugged, something that is secure is what's really prioritized for us. But definitely design and making sure that this type of the solution is something that the customer can align with the brand is something that's very important.
Do you see the hardware as something that people will want to put on when they're about to go on a workout, or something that they might wear all day long?
So yeah, so that's a great question. So sort of the two use cases, one being like the general lifestyle, you wear it like a smartphone peripheral, or sort of like a gym bag accessory as like sneakers. It's as important as going to the gym as sneakers. So we're really going for the latter of the two, where we think the problem and the need is there already. And instead of trying to sort of create like a new need for you to get text messages on your wrist, which could be great, we don't know yet, but the idea of it being a part of the gym is much more, something that we're much more intimately involved with.
We got time for one more question.
All right.
Is the device transferable between users, or is the user-specific data lodged on the device? Like if you're a personal trainer, can you buy one and then give it to each of your clients so they have their own thing on their phone?
Great question. Yeah. So at launch, each device will unfortunately be tied to an individual. But moving forward, from a personal trainer perspective, you'll be able to set up different types of dashboards with your clients to be able to access multiple devices, and that's one of our strategies as well in terms of helping the personal trainer market as a tool, where this device pretty much takes all the tedious crap you have to deal with each session out of the picture, and now you, the personal trainer, can actually focus on the important aspects like motivation, and specific details of form, etc. Cool, and I think that's all we have time for. Thank you, everybody.
You good? All right, this one's working out. Thanks, Peter. Tony, if you want to just leave that up, it's probably prettier than putting up a MeetUp logo. So for this next portion of the MeetUp, what we're going to do is just go over what we're calling the 5x5. So these are 5 volunteers who are going to speak about either something cool that they're working on, something that's upcoming, or something that they just went to that's wearables focused. And there's no commitment to do any sort of slides or presentation, and hopefully we can keep the Q&A to a minimum. In fact, we're hoping that this kind of spurs the conversation afterwards in the networking. So if one of the 5 people says something or looks for some sort of request, if you guys want to follow up with them, the time afterwards in the networking is really what that's for. And we'll try to keep it as quick as possible as well, just so there is time for that networking before we have to get out of here in about an hour. So just to spur things, I thought I would start. So we are wearables.com. As I mentioned earlier, we're currently just curating news around the space. So if you want access to the latest information, if you want to find out about product reviews and events, you can hit our page, our site, sorry. You can sign up for our email newsletters. What we're hoping to build out, though, and this is kind of what my portion of the 5x5 is, the next project that we're really working on is to create the end destination for the wearable community and the wearable ecosystem online. And the next stage that we're working on, which is something that, in conversations with a lot of our earlier visitors and community, they, really kind of asked for, and that's, we're trying to index all available wearable technology. So essentially what we're calling it is our use case database. People would reach out and say, look, I just want stuff that is for swimming. I just want either a headset, or I want audio, or I want a fitness tracker purely for swimming. How do I find that information? It's extremely fragmented, as we all know right now. And there's certain areas within the space that are heavily inundated, like fitness trackers, which obviously we all know will see some commoditization. So the next iteration of the site, which we're hoping to have up soon, and I purposely didn't bring any sort of wireframes. And kind of my question to you guys, which I'm hoping afterwards y'all will find me and let me know, is if you guys were to have access to some sort of database for the wearable tech community, what is it that you guys would want to see within it? I can tell you more about what we're working on. Currently, it's going to be only hardware devices, but we hope to also index software and then eventually companies as well. So kind of a Wolfram connected devices meets Crunchbase meets Engadget for the wearable tech community. So my name's Luis, wearables.com. If you guys want to come find me afterwards, please let me know your database idea sucks, or this is awesome. Here's what I would really get some benefit out of it. Next, we have 2 really gracious volunteers in Brad and Dustin. And they are with Hartwell, and I'm just going to let them take over. You can do it without a mic, I'd assume, right? Yeah. If you guys want to come up here, you can stand wherever. Yeah, okay, perfect.
So, Dustin Hyman, just a little background on me. Worked at Dell here in Austin for about 8 years. Did a lot of roles around COO-like roles for their services businesses, and then was a CFO position when we bought Wise Technology. Anyway, I left there in January to go full-time on Hartwell with Brad. We've been doing this for 2.5 years. Hartwell is currently outdoor apparel and equipment. We started to look more at this wearable space. We recently put a patent together and filed a patent around basically wearables from an apparel perspective. So rather than wrist-mounted wearables, we're looking at it from a garment or apparel piece. We have a great vendor who does great apparel for us out of China, so that's one thing that we've got in place. And so now we're working on the technology piece. I'll let Brad talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. My name is Brad Hewitt. I've been designing ruggedized tablets and other mobile devices in Austin for the last 12 years or so. And yeah, Dustin and I have been doing kind of a lot of research over the last 8 months or 9 months in this exciting space. And you know, there's just a lot of navigating and pivoting and what if this and what if that. And it's been a fun time. We're really excited to see you guys put together these meetup. We're like definitely gonna get down here and learn from everybody around us. So a little bit about what we're trying to do is, again, you know, the everyday carry. How do you integrate wearable devices into that, and what do you do with that information? As Peter mentioned, you know, a lot of these wearables people use, and then the first 30% after 6 months they put it in the drawer, and after that, another 6 months later, the other 30's gone. And a lot of that is related to the data. These things are data collectors, and you access that data maybe at the end of the day. You say, okay, well, I climbed 55 steps, and you know, and I slept 8 hours. Well, that's great. What do you do with that information? And so what we're working on is how to make a reactionary wearable device that will change the outcome of your day. It gives you real-time data that allows you, real-time environmental data that allows you to take that, aggregate it, digest it, and do something about it before it's the end of the day, and change your outcome of the day. And we've also, you know, had a lot of discussions about, okay, well, how else is this data useful? Because what we found is a lot of times you can create a solution to a problem that doesn't exist, and at least in the consumer environment, nobody's going to buy that. So, you know, another play here is, you know, look at who else is this data valuable to, and who is that consumer comfortable with owning that data or getting access to it.
So again, Hartwell, if you think about us, outdoors, apparel, outdoor sensing data. So thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Awesome, thanks guys. And Jen is going to do the next slide about that.
Hi guys, I'm back. Two things. Well, one, my peer Elliott was pulled on a project, and they have a big push tonight. So Elliott was going to speak to wearables and sleep data. So we're going to delay that topic till next week. But Elliott's been working on a side project of analyzing environmental data coupled with Jawbone. But if you also would like to hear, Sam Gaddis with Mutual Mobile and I have worked on a project for a brand currently, which is wearable tech coupled with sleep number beds in order to try to get a holistic picture of that. So if you would like some brainstorm buddies or to hear about what we're working up, Sam, if you wouldn't mind raising your hand, we're some folks to brainstorm about that. What I wanted to talk about is I've been chatting a lot and doing some consulting work with a company called Rhythmio, and I just wanted to tell you guys very briefly what they're about, because I think their product might be relevant to some of you in early stages of developing your new wearables products. So Rhythmio positions themselves as a gesture recognition platform. Their SDK will be announced over the next month. It's open, it plays well with all types of sensors. So if you're interested in learning more, please contact me. I think two things which is really important and valuable. Key thing with my talk was the accuracy of our wearables is the bane of the existence from a consumer's perspective. And boy, isn't it frustrating when you run up 10 stairs as I'm trying to get fitter, and it tells you that you only ran up 1. Or if I know for a fact that perhaps I'm training for a try and I ran a certain distance, which I am not, I don't like running at all, and it reports back. So whether you're a pro athlete or you're a beginning level athlete or just trying to actually get your butt moving from being sedentary all day, the numbers matter to consumers, and via our user research division at work, we're hearing that from a lot of these users across all age groups, demographics, and backgrounds, that once you figure out how to unpackage a product and you put it on your wrist or your body part and you start engaging with it, if the results are not that what you expect and you know for a fact you did different actions, it's really frustrating. So I personally view this to be a very big problem with a lot of products today that's going to prevent a lot of consumers from engaging in the next product, which might be a brilliant idea in this room tonight. So I became very interested in this company, have been communicating with them a lot, and what they do is they help innovators in that your wearable can go into a learning mode. It can learn for Jen Quinlan doing jumping jacks, what does that look like, versus someone else who might be better, a bigger pro at doing jumping jacks versus a toddler. Consumers can have the ability to actually train their wearable to recognize their body's actions. So I view that as a huge possibility for a new wave of products. The second one, even within our own office, as we've been trying to tackle the space, it is really frustrating. I don't know how you guys have done this. It's really frustrating trying to write the perfect algorithm to recognize a wide range of body types doing one action well. So that's something we're banging our heads against the wall right now. A passion project in our office is we're trying to create the world's first connected football. And just to get this football with the sensors inside to recognize an accurate spiral or not has made for a lot of frustration and a lot of math. So I just wanted to reference this company, and if you're interested in learning more about them, I'd be happy to connect you direct with them. Definitely their documentation and their SDK and their APIs will be out next month, so happy to be your point of contact to connect you with them then. For next up, I'm going to transition over to Conrad. Conrad is an iOS architect, and he recently attended WWDC. So I know some folks in the room might be interested in hearing a little bit more about HealthKit. So he's just going to give us a quick 5-minute overview of what HealthKit is, what you can expect, and why it's meaningful to wearables. Thanks.
Thanks. Can I take over the AirPlay? I think dude in the back on the laptop may have that connected. Figured I'd just show you guys a quick demo of something. No worries. So just a quick show of hands, who has seen or played with Swift yet, the new language that Apple unveiled at WWDC this year? Anybody? A couple people? Well, if you've ever taken a look at iOS in the past but been sort of turned off by the kind of strange, ugly Objective-C syntax, you might take another look now, because Apple has a new programming language called Swift that is very cool and very nifty. So if you're a developer in the crowd, definitely want to check that out.
Can we somehow or another have a birds of a feather session in the corners somewhere at the end for everybody who's interested in Swift?
Sure, I'll stick around.
Great.
So certainly the theme of WWDC this year was new things for developers, right? That Jen already mentioned HealthKit, and I mentioned Swift, which is a new programming language, but there are also lots of other things like extensions and continuity, like shared experiences between the Mac, and adaptive UI, which is new tools for developers to build apps that adapt to larger layouts, or presumably also smaller layouts, when we all assume Apple will come out with a watch later. So I wanted to show you guys a quick demo of what an extension might look like.
We had it for a second.
It's thinking about it. Okay. So this is just a video, but I'll just play that real quick. Maybe I will. Okay, so this is an extension for a running app that I built, and what you can see here is that I had a stopwatch going in the background, And then I pulled down my notification center on iOS, and you can start and stop the run, like if you're jogging on the trail, from both locations, and the two sync between each other. So you can go and start your run and then put your phone away, maybe select a song from your iPod or from a podcast app or something like that. And then you want to stop and talk to a friend or grab a drink of water or something, and you can just pull down on your notification center and pause that activity right from there. So I just thought that was a cool demo to show you a little bit of the capabilities that are in extensions, because one of the biggest things with iOS 8 is going to be the ability for developers to extend the system. So we've got today widgets like these, also sharing extensions and file providers, and there's a whole list of different ones, and I'm sure there will be more and more added over time. So definitely one thing to check out is extensions, and also HealthKit. And so HealthKit, I'm sure many people are interested in that. HealthKit is essentially a health information database. So anything that's fitness related, I think there's about 60 different types of data, ranging from your standard like distance tracking type stuff, steps and mileage and kilometers and all that kind of stuff, to all sorts of biometric data that you can input into HealthKit. And the good news is it's really easy to do this. So if you are building an app that has to do with fitness data, it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and do this small amount of work to just send that data over to HealthKit, because HealthKit is going to be a very big ecosystem. It's going to be a lot bigger than any individual developer's platform or any small shared platform between similar applications. It's going to be something that in the long run enables lots of developers to collaborate with a shared set of data that users accumulate. And I think certainly people are going to want to buy apps and devices that share information into this ecosystem. So we're not there yet. I think it's really the very early stages of what HealthKit is, and we see a lot of potential there. But the big thing for now is just going to be adding more information to that database so that it can realize that potential over time. So I'll stick around. If anybody has any questions about WWDC, iOS 8, Yosemite, or Swift, feel free to come grab me. Thanks.
And last, I believe we have Zach, who just attended GlazeCon over June 3rd and 4th, is that correct? In San Francisco. So he's going to talk about that.
Thank you. Hi everyone, I'm Zach. I work with the fine folks at Mutual Mobile. And while Conrad was having fun at WWDC in San Francisco, I was also there just at a weird event called GlazeCon. So it wasn't a donut convention or anything creepy, it was actually a wearable tech event. And while a lot of those events will focus on the technical aspects or developer content of wearables, this event was focused more on the business or strategy side of wearables. So I'm just going to talk for a few minutes about a few quick trends that I picked up at the event. First was commoditization. So it's really interesting to see how, I've heard it a couple times already here tonight, we're already getting some products commoditized in the wearable space. So it's pretty new, and as Jen mentioned, we haven't even got it right yet in some cases, but especially those basic activity trackers, those are kind of first along that path in terms of being commoditized. Probably next, just based on what I saw at the event, I mean, there was 8 or 9 different companies there all doing posture assistance. So if you think of, like Back and similar companies, they're all doing the exact same thing, just in a different form factor. So maybe it's a belt, maybe it clips to your, the back of your pants, maybe it's an article of clothing itself. But that was another example of just a bunch of companies all flooding in one space and not really differentiating themselves from one another. Another one that I saw that looks like it's heading down that commodities path is gesture control. There were a ton of companies there all doing gesture control, basically the same thing, just in a different form factor. So second quick trend was the social contract. I don't know if anybody's heard of that. There was a lot of talk at it at the event, and they weren't really referring to the traditional meaning in terms of government and society. It was more along the lines of, how two people interact with one another. So if we're having a conversation, I'm wearing clothes, I'm not going to do anything weird, there's unspoken rules that we abide by when we're interacting with one another. And there was a lot of talk at the event about the social contract. Robert Scoble in particular talked a lot about it in context with glass. And has anybody seen the Google Glass in the shower picture? I'm sure most everybody's seen that, right? Robert Scoble in the shower with Google Glass on. He was an early big fan, but now he's not even excited about it anymore. So these are his words, not mine. Nobody get upset with me, but in his words, glass breaks that social contract in terms of if you're talking with somebody that has glass on. I mean, you don't know, they could be recording, they could be taking photos, maybe they're not even paying attention to you, they could be looking at something else. So he thinks that if glass doesn't find a way to avoid breaking this contract, that they have very limited promise, at least in the broad consumer market. The last trend I want to talk about, and just really quick, is mHealth. And I don't have a lot of time to get into all the cool things related to mHealth that I saw at the event, but
what is it?
Oh, sorry. mHealth is a term that's referred to wearables, connected devices, and any kind of new technology that is in a smaller form factor in the healthcare space. So there's, I think the key takeaway, I don't have time to get into a lot, but the key takeaway is if you're not already following this space, you should. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. It's one of those great examples where there's a big business opportunity, but it's also doing a lot to help people and improve lives. I mean, there's examples of traditional medical machines that may be tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars now being replaced by a device that maybe is a few $100s. So a lot of really exciting things. mHealth is going to do a lot to improve healthcare and lower costs not only in this country but around the world. So pay attention to it. And that's what I have from GlazeCon. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, we are at 7:30, so we have about 45 minutes to an hour to hang, and I bought a ton of beer at HEB, so please enjoy it. So once again, you have Christian in the back corner who's going to have a high five demo, and he would love your help being users tonight, so go high five him. And also the lovely Atlas team, thank you so much for being our guest speaker for tonight. We really appreciate your time, and please stop by the back corner as well to get a first-hand demo of their product as well. So thank you, everyone. I'll send out an email tomorrow with just kind of a survey. So we'd love your continued feedback as to how can we make this better, more efficient, good use of your time. And if you would like to speak at future events, either in the guest speaker slot or in the 5x5s, please let Luis or myself know. Cool. Thanks, everyone.